Hello viewers. When Bishop Jewel Withers stepped to the pulpit at the 117th COGIC Holy Convocation, no one knew they were about to witness one of the most electrifying sermons in the history of the church. The room was already trembling with anticipation, but when he opened his mouth, everything shifted. His voice carried a weight that felt ancient, prophetic, almost dangerous. And within minutes, people were crying, shouting, whispering, and leaning forward as if the next sentence might change their lives. By the end of the night, attendees said it felt like the truth itself had exploded across the sanctuary. But what exactly did he reveal? And why did it leave the entire convocation buzzing long after the lights dimmed, long before he held thousands in the palm of his hand? Jewel Withers was a quiet boy raised in a modest home where faith wasn't optional. It was the anchor that held the family together. He grew up sitting in wooden pews that creaked beneath restless children, listening to elders testify about storms, miracles, and deliverance. Even then, he felt a pull toward something bigger than himself. His mother often said he had old eyes, the kind that saw more than a child should. But he didn't speak much. He watched. He absorbed. And deep inside, a calling was forming, one he didn't yet understand. As he grew older, that quiet boy transformed into a young minister who delivered messages with a fire people didn't see coming. His sermons cut through noise, pride, and pretense with the precision of someone who had walked through storms of his own. And word began to spread, there was something different about Jewel Withers. Something bold. Something honest. Something that refused to sugarcoat truth for the sake of comfort. It was only a matter of time before his voice began echoing in circles far beyond his hometown. But fame in ministry doesn't come without pressure. Expectations grew. Invitations multiplied. And while the spotlight found him, he never lost the edge that made people listen. He preached with conviction, yes, but also with pain, vulnerability, and the awareness that the church often avoids confrontation more than the world does. And behind the robe, behind the pulpit, behind the applause, no one knew everything he carried inside. That was the tension he brought with him to the 117th Holy Convocation. And behind the fame, the truth was far darker. The sanctuary was packed with thousands when he walked in. Cameras were already rolling, capturing every angle for viewers around the world. Choirs had finished their last harmonies, ushers were guiding latecomers to their seats, and a low hum of whispers filled the space. People expected a powerful message, but they had no idea they were about to witness a spiritual confrontation. The moment Bishop Withers reached the microphone, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations died. Fans froze. Even some leaders sat up straight, sensing something unusual creeping into the room. He didn't begin with a scripture. He didn't open with a joke. Instead, he stared across the congregation, took a long breath, and said, "Some of you have been living a lie, and God sent me here to expose it." The words dropped like stones in water, sending ripples through every row. And this was only the beginning of the heartbreak. He spoke of complacency, how believers show up every Sunday but never show up for their own spiritual battles. He spoke of hidden struggles, jealousy, fear, insecurity, sin, that leaders pretend don't exist. He spoke of calling, how many people run from destiny because mediocrity feels safer. His voice rose, fell, cracked, and thundered, each word striking with surgical precision. Some people shouted. Others cried. Some sat still, unable to move as though truth had pinned them to their seats. And then he shifted. His tone softened, almost trembling, as he revealed something unexpected, his own moments of doubt. He spoke about nights when he questioned his purpose, days when he felt unworthy to preach, seasons when he wondered if God still heard him. For a moment, the mighty bishop wasn't a giant, he was a man admitting he had walked through fire. And that vulnerability broke something open in the room. But no one knew what was coming next, because that honesty paved the way for the sermon's most explosive moment. Withers paused, scanning the sanctuary like he was searching for someone. Then he said, "We're losing people, not because the world is strong, but because the church is weak. We won't confront sin. We won't confront pride. We won't confront ourselves. And God is tired of our performance." The crowd gasped. Some stood in shock. A few elders lowered their heads as his words echoed through the massive venue. This wasn't just preaching. This was surgery. Online viewers felt it too. Comments began pouring in instantly. He's talking to me. I've never heard truth like this. This is shaking my whole spirit. The sermon had moved beyond the sanctuary. It was beginning to spread like wildfire across social media, but the turning point came when he spoke about accountability among leaders. With tears in his eyes, he warned that titles don't protect anyone from judgment. If we don't deal with ourselves, he said, God will deal with us publicly. And the room went stone silent. For a moment, it felt as if the weight of heaven itself had descended on the convocation. It seemed like the end, until fate intervened, because instead of closing the sermon with rebuke, Withers shifted again. His voice softened into hope. He spoke of restoration, new beginnings, second chances. He urged the church to rise, to fight, to return to its first love. He reminded them that brokenness is not disqualification, it's where transformation begins. And slowly, the heaviness lifted, replaced by a wave of worship that swept across the sanctuary. When he stepped away from the pulpit, people stood with tears streaming down their faces. Ministers embraced. Choir members prayed. Elders bowed. Something had changed, something bigger than the sermon, bigger than the convocation, bigger than the moment itself. Days later, clips of the sermon were still circulating, sparking debate, conviction, and revival across the COGIC community. It wasn't just a message. It was a mirror. And Bishop Withers had forced everyone, including himself, to look into it. Tonight, the question still lingers, will the church rise to the challenge he delivered, or will the moment fade into memory? Because one thing is certain, Bishop Jewel Withers didn't just preach that night, he became the message.